Greetings, quilters. My brother asked if we could make a Christmas tree skirt for him, and this is a step-by-step on how that process went together. So this is the Christmas tree skirt that we came up with. So the first thing that we did was look for designs. We settled on a design that had 16 panels. It used 4 colors, and the 4 colors gave us a swirl effect that we liked. So the next step is to calculate the materials required. With 4 colors going into this, we only needed 18 inches of each color. For the binding, we needed another 8 inches of material. For the back and for the batting, we needed about 42 inches. So now we're ready to go shopping. So we found some colors that we were pretty happy with, but when we got home, we found out the one that we had selected to do the binding with was more of an orange color than red, and so we went back and bought more of the polka dot material to do the binding with. So we lay the batting out, and my batting was kind of wrinkled, and so I put the iron to it, and guess what? The sizing in the batting stuck to the iron, and it was quite a mess. I don't suggest ironing batting. So the first thing that we did was mark the center. We made a compass out of a plastic pipe and put a pointed thing in one end and a felt tip pen in the other, and we were able to draw a fairly nice circle on this material. And this is the starting point. The next step in the process is to get rid of the excess material. We left about 1.5 inches, 2 inches all the way around the circle on the batting. The next thing that we need to do is to divide this circle into 16 equal segments. We do that by finding the circumference by taking the diameter times pi and then divide that by 16. In my case, my compass was too small to mark out this measurement for 16, and so I had to measure 32, click out 32, and then just use every other one. Okay, we're now ready to make the 2.5 inch strips, and we cut our 4 different colors. There are 9 different lengths, and we're going to make 4 pieces of each different length, and so we're ready to start cutting those. So as I cut these, I arrange them in the sequence so that I can see that I have 4 of each piece of each size, and then once they're all cut, I arrange them into the sequence that they're going to be when they're sewn together. We're now ready to prep these pieces so that they can be sewn together. We do that by folding each piece in half, and we use a roller to crease them. Each piece that adjoins to each other needs to be creased in the opposite direction so that when we get ready to sew them, these pieces will nest. So all of the pieces in the entire column need to be creased, each one in the opposite direction of the one below it. Press the seams carefully so that you do not distort the individual pieces. Each column needs to be pressed, the seams need to be pressed in the opposite direction so that they will nest together. Now we're ready to cut these pieces to size, and to do that I made a template, and I allowed a healthy seam allowance on either side for this template, and I marked a center line so that I could make sure that my template was not skewed on the fabric. I also put a little silicone caulking on the template because the template had a tendency to slide on the fabric, and this helped hold it secure while I was doing the cutting process. I used my ruler on top of the template to cut with, and that worked out very well. Once I had all of the pieces cut out, I was excited to see what it was going to look like, so I laid it out on my batting to see, and it looked nice. We need to back up and go to the creation of the quilt back, and in doing that we had to decide where it was going to be split, and then we made a name tag. We put the person's name, who made it, and when it was made on that name tag, and sewed it on in a place that was not going to be where it was cut through. Now we're ready to secure the back and the batting together. We first pin all the way around, and then we sew outside of the skirt area all the way around, and we sew in the center. This way the material will stay together while we're putting our pieces on it. Where the skirt is going to open to go around the tree, we won't sew anything on that line. So the first panel is going to be to the right of that. We'll lay one panel face up and another panel face down on it. Now we're going to use the lines marked on the batting as where we're going to sew each of the seams. This way we will be able to keep the seams sewn straight all the way around, and the panels will be equal in width. In order to do this, I use a straight edge and line it up with where the seam starts and where the seam ends, and I use a pencil to mark on top of the fabric. That way I can use that pencil line to sew the panel on top of the one beneath it, and that will keep the seam right in line with where it should be. Now that all of the panels are sewn in place, we're ready to trim the skirt so that we can put the binding on it. We cut the opening that goes around the tree on both sides so that it's smooth and clean. We use whatever fits the center of the skirt to make a circle and cut around that. I chose to cut the perimeter of the skirt even with the end of each block. You can use a compass, mark around it, and cut it so that it's circular. Either one of them would look very nice. Okay, now we're ready to do the binding for the skirt. We take the material that we had, cut it on the diagonal, 2.5 inches wide, sew it end to end, iron it so that it's flat, fold it over in half and iron it again. Then we pin the rough edges of the binding to the rough edges of the skirt. At this point, we're going to leave the center of the skirt free and not do anything with that, but we will sew the binding all the way around and then turn it over, pull it to the back side and pin it securely, and then we're going to come back to the top side and stitch in the ditch all the way around the perimeter of the skirt. We're now ready to work on the center of the skirt. This binding needs to be long enough that you can tie the skirt around the tree. So it's going to be folded differently. We're going to fold this in half and iron it, and then fold the outside to the center and iron that. You need to find the center of this and match it to the center of the opening for the tree, and then pin that around the opening. Then you're going to sew this shut by starting at one end and sewing the 1/4 inch seam all the way around until you reach the other end. Now the skirt is complete. And now we do a quick inspection of the skirt and the binding. We found on the back side that we had missed a spot or two, and so we used a needle and thread and caught that so that it wouldn't pull apart. And this is the front side of the skirt, and this is the back side of the skirt. We thank you very much for watching this and hope you've enjoyed.